Welcome back to the only YouTube exclusive podcast. It is episode 3 of season 2 with Express Talk. And I know that this is the first time in a while that it is actually an episode of Express Talk, but the Express Talk podcast has morphed again to include the old Indie Spotlight series, and that is why my guest is with me today, one half of the Creative Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions and the Breakfast Club, Francis Kipland Stevens.
Hey, how you doing, Michael? Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, looking forward to this. Looking forward to bringing on the Express Talk.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to actually having a guest.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I'm an open book. Any questions you want, I'll be more than happy to answer.
So, for the fans who may not know of you, why not? Let's start there. Of giving a background of how you got in the business, and maybe if you're like a specific territory type wrestler, your main base area, stuff like that.
Alright. Well, I guess just like all wrestlers, I was definitely a fan growing up. About 10 years ago, I was at this trade show, and New York Wrestling Connection had a booth. They were advertising one of their shows, and just by happenstance, I asked their champion, Dickie Rods, and I don't know what possessed me to ask this, because he was trying to get me to buy tickets. I'm like, so they're going to a show, do you guys have a school so I can train? And you have to understand, I am not the biggest guy physically now. Back then I was even more pathetic, under 6 feet tall, like maybe 120 pounds. And instead of Dickie Rods laughing at me, he said, yeah, sure, definitely come down and try it out. And because he gave me that little bit of encouragement, I followed my dreams. From there, I've wrestled in a lot of places. I've been lucky enough to wrestle for Beyond Wrestling. I've wrestled for the Monster Factory. Right Coast Pro in Delaware. I could name a lot of other places. Blitzkrieg Pro. Obviously, like the place where I would consider my home base right now is Creative Pro Wrestling, which was founded by Pat Buck and Curt Hawkins. And I'm currently one half the tag team champions. I'm having a great time there.
Well, that's great to hear. First question, since I know a little bit about the indies, but my knowledge of the indies is a little bit dated. Does Pat still own Pro Wrestling Syndicate?
Yeah, I mean, there was an interesting thing with Pat. He was co-owner of Pro Wrestling Syndicate, and then a couple of years ago he split off and he founded WrestlePro. And what's great is a lot of the PWS regulars went to WrestlePro. So pretty much if you have fun at PWS shows, you're going to have that much fun and then more at WrestlePro shows. It's a lot of the same regulars, but they're always bringing in big name talents. In fact, on their next show, just want to make sure I get the date right, so I do apologize. But I know I will be there in Rahway, New Jersey. But also Jake the Snake will be there, and Rosemary. And that's just awesome about WrestlePro, is that you're going to have, the homegrown students, and you're also going to have the legends. Mm-hmm. And that next show is on November 18th.
Well, there you go. November 18th, Rahway, New Jersey for WrestlePro.
Yep. Rosemary, Jake the Snake, and Real Jack Swagger will be in the house, along with myself. But, of course, I'm not on their level.
Yeah. You're a level above.
Yeah, well, I will get there one day, though. I'll give myself some optimism.
Yeah. You gotta give some optimism. Speaking of optimism, I ask this to all the indie wrestlers I interview. I don't know if you followed the onset of the Global Force Wrestling introduction when Jeff made the announcement, but he referenced the possibility of wrestling, him feeling like wrestling was on the brink of another golden age. Do you think that the indies have reached that point?
That's a very interesting question, because in ways I'll say no. It's tough this day and age to get people to leave their house for a variety of reasons. Everybody has these great big giant screens and they can relax at home. And geez, like last month there was that horrible incident in Las Vegas, and people might be a little leery to leave their house because of that. Then again, for the first time in a long time, you have people who are extremely successful on the indies, like the Young Bucks, and Colt Cabana, and even Cody Rhodes, where he was looking at his situation in WWE and saw an opportunity to do just as well, if not better, on the indies financially. Mm-hmm. So it's a mixed bag. I think if you're somebody who has name value or somebody who brings something unique, you can do very well in the indies. But you're always going to have people who struggle and who have to scratch and claw to make it. I hope that it gets that way, and the only way you can get sustainable for like as many people as possible comes down to the fans, and that's why any fan that buys a ticket, I certainly appreciate it. Any fan that comes to my table, even if they don't buy something from my gimmick table, but they just have a conversation, I always take time to thank them for coming out to the show and, at least, tell them that I appreciate them being there, and hopefully they're having a great time.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with the fact that fans aren't very willing to leave the house and even realize that, right around the corner from them there's a wrestling show. But do you think that some of it also falls on the promoter not promoting?
Oh yeah, of course. A promoter like, I don't know, I'm gonna name him, but Pat Buck is phenomenal. Like, he really goes above and beyond for his promotion. It's his money on the line always, and he just does great stuff. He's definitely an example of what I feel promoters should be doing. Then there's other promoters that, they just think, if I just have a show every month, people will come, and they don't put much behind it. And, they're only hurting themselves, but they're also hurting the performers on that show. It takes a lot to promote. It's tried and true things like taking flyers, putting them up in as many windows as possible in the town. That's such a vital thing, but it's time consuming and it takes a while to do that. Facebook advertisements. There's so many things that go into it that I think promoters don't do. A lot of promoters just assume again, the golden age is here, we should be fine. But there's a lot of work that has to go into it. And that's why I love wrestling for Creative Pro and Wrestle Pro, because Pat's such a good example. And like I said, I see firsthand how much he goes above and beyond. So it makes it easy to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to pitch in as much as possible too. I'll take some flyers, hand them out. I'll, hang up signs, just anything you can do to assist him in any way. It's awesome.
Yeah. Now, it's pretty clear that you enjoy working for Pat and Curt Hawkins, but if a promoter was the opposite of Pat, would you feel still that connection and that willingness to help promote the show, or would you, if the promoter's not investing, would you feel like you shouldn't either?
Well, for me personally, yes, because I have a certain ethic, and I feel no promoter has to book me. It's not, I'm a good wrestler. I deserve to be here. I always feel like I should earn my way as much as possible. Mm-hmm. If that means me promoting it on my Twitter, again, it's not the biggest reach in the world, but at least it's me trying. Same thing on my Facebook. Same thing like coming on your show today. I will have no problem mentioning shows that I'm going to be doing in the future. And if it brings in just one extra person to the door, like, then I'm happy because, you know, I owe it to the person paying me for that day, and I also owe it to people who are coming to see me. To give my best, not just the day of the show, but leading up to it, and even after it, you know, just a little thing like promoting, like, hey, you know, I'm not going to be at the next show, but still, they were a great company, and definitely check them out.
Yeah.
I think that's just right business for on all levels.
Yeah. I agree with that. You know, now, well, I think it was when I was talking with Sebastian Cage that he referenced the fact that it's more, you know, back in the day, because I think we were talking about the territories or something like that, but he said something like, back in the day, promoters would converse with each other, and the promoters would be the ones who have the relationships with each other, but now the wrestler has to be the one that has the relationship with the promoter.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. I know that promoters do still talk, and again, like, that's where you always want to do the right thing. You don't want to locker room disruption, because if you are, that's something that gets around.
Yeah.
That's something where, though, I also feel like I fall short on is having a strong relationship with the promoter. Like, I'm polite, you know, but I'm also at times, like, I kind of keep to myself just because I'm more of an introverted person. And then I look at a guy who's a good example, like a Maxwell Jacob Feinstein, or Friedman now, excuse me. He's somebody who is extremely outgoing and has no problem talking a promoter's ear off, and has no problem saying to somebody like, "Why aren't you using me? I'm great." And that was never me, which I think hurts me at times. But that being said, I do like to, you know, still, if I go to a place, you know, thank the promoter for having me, do the right thing, do exactly what he wants on the show. Don't go over on time. Just, you know, try and be a good employee.
So,
sorry to cut you off because you're talking about names. One guy who really influenced me in a lot of ways is Brutal Bob Evans, and he'd always say, you know, serve first. You know, serve the promotion you're working for first. And I always kind of had that mantra, but I never had, like, the label for it, but it was always something that I keep in my mind.
Yeah.
Again, for that day, for that amount of time, for the money we agreed upon, like, I'm that employee, and, you know, whatever that promoter needs, like, that's what I'm looking to give.
I was gonna say, so you're the opposite of Shawn Michaels in the 90s.
Well, I wasn't around Shawn Michaels in the 90s. I know a lot of people have had horror stories, but again, like, to be fair, Shawn was somebody who was, you know, also at the top of his game and had Vince's ear and was really that passionate and that strong. And, you know, it's almost like he had a leg to stand on, like he could back it up.
Yeah.
And again, like, and Vince gave him that latitude as well. So I could see where other people would be angry with him, but...
No, I think I'm good for now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure Shawn, if you were going to ask him about how he handled things back in the day, he'd be like, I did what I felt was best for me at the time, and the company at the time as well. Yeah.
I mean, maybe a bad point of reference, referencing the Heartbreak Kid, but, you know, for anybody, because I know how internet people work, for anybody thinking, oh, he's talking negatively about Shawn Michaels, no. You know, I'm not talking negatively about Shawn Michaels, because Shawn, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I know Shawn talks about this time in interviews, and I'm sure would not, you know, he knows that who he is now is because of what he was before.
Yeah, and again, if you have that belief in yourself too, it might rub people the wrong way. But again, if you feel that strongly about yourself and everything, like, you kind of have to go with what you feel is right. And, again, like, trust me, I don't think you're talking negatively about Shawn Michaels. There's plenty of other people who probably do, but, certainly you and I will not be one of them.
Yeah. So now shift gears as I try and change things up a little bit with the formatting. To maybe talk, do a little bit of name association. I'll say a name and you maybe talk a little bit about the person, or just whatever pops into your head.
That sounds fun.
So first name that popped into my head was Curt Hawkins.
Friend. When I was at NYWC, he was already signed and already on TV when I first met him. And he would come down, and again, like, he became friends with Fat Pat, and Fat Pat and I were friends, so that's how I started getting close with Brian, just because Fat Pat would bring me around, and then we'd also do these, like, little private training sessions at NYWC with only a few people, and I was always invited, which was really flattering. And then he started up Creative Pro, and again, he's somebody who I can go to for advice on, anything. He's always steering me in the right direction. He's somebody I could have a laugh with, and he's also giving me good life advice too. So, first and foremost, a friend, and he's going to be in WWE for a long time, and he really is the man.
Well, another former trainer, Mikey Whipwreck.
Red, because I think of his red hair. Mikey was, it was cool to have a legend like that around, but I was always very intimidated by him. And then when we talked earlier about, like, talking to promoters and stuff, I respected Mikey, but that's why I kind of avoided him in a lot of ways, because I was like, oh, why does he want to talk with me? I don't want to talk his ear off about ECW and things like that. But meanwhile, like, looking back, I probably should have, because, again, I'm sure he would have loved to talk about it with me. And, I don't see him as much anymore, but if I did, it'd be great to catch up with him and have a laugh.
So, Mikey, if you're listening, give Kip Stevens a call.
We do follow each other on
Twitter. Another name is Tony Nese.
Abs will be the first thing I think of. Nese was somebody, when I first got there at NYWC, he definitely did not like me. And he definitely did not think I was going to last. But through, I think the fact that he saw me working so hard at it and trying so hard, and he saw how much I cared, he kind of realized, all right, he's not just a joke. All right, maybe he'll never get it. Oh, wow, he is getting it. And getting his respect was something that was very important to me. It was cool to, and again, I consider him a friend. He invited me to his wedding, which was really great. All the success that he had coming to him is well deserved. He has a wonderful family. His wife Liz is awesome also. His daughter Lucy is the cutest thing. I hope that, he has as much fun in WWE as humanly possible, and he's successful there as possible. And also, I always say this, for the record, we've only had one match against each other. It was a triple threat, and I beat him for the Fusion title, so I also have that in my little Wikipedia page as well.
Well, that's a,
Yeah, I sent him packing to WWE. Good one for Kip.
And Tony Nese, if you're listening, don't take that personally. Or do take that personally.
Hopefully in a sold out arena at WrestleMania.
or do take that personally and maybe pull some strings. Alex Reynolds and John Silver.
For Alex Reynolds, yours truly. For John Silver, the Meat Man. They're such a great tag team, but individually, like, they're amazing. I feel like both of them are extremely underrated. Both of them should be on as many indie shows as their life will permit. I've learned so much from Alex Reynolds. So much. Anytime I've wrestled against him, anytime I've been in training, like, he just brings the best out of anybody he wrestles. If you can put him up against anybody and it'll be one of their best matches, and I put myself on that list. He truly is, like, hands down one of the most underrated wrestlers anywhere. John Silver, my God, he is probably one of the funniest people. If you watched his promos for Beyond Wrestling, where he talks about the Meat Man coming, I laugh my ass off every single time. At times I feel like he's lost his mind, but in all good ways. And again, like, you can put him on a show and he will definitely get the crowd extremely entertained and riled up. And those are very important things to have.
That's true. Well, I'm not sure if you were able to work with these two, but I was, I figured I'd give it a shot. Brandon Watts and Randy Summers.
Okay, yes, I have. And I'm smiling from ear to ear right now. And again, the first word I'm going to say is losers, because I used to call them losers all the time, not in a mean way, just in a joking way. At the time at NYWC, the head trainers were Nice and Reynolds. But they needed somebody to help out, like, with just the beginning chain, which is like showing people who come in the door the basics, like lockups, how to do a headlock. Not so much bumping and things like that, but just little fundamentals about footwork and things like that. They didn't have the patience for it, but they wanted me to do that, which was an extremely high compliment for me. So the first day of training, Milk Chocolate, Summers, and Watts, they had to stay with me on the floor. And I showed them pretty much all, like, the basics, like hammer locks, wrist locks, things like that. And I don't want to say hard on them, because I was, it was just more like I wanted them to get it right. So, if they were doing something wrong, I'd call them out on it right away. But they appreciated it. Like, they hated it at the time, of course, but when they got in the ring and everything was easier to fall into place because they didn't have to worry about their chain and they didn't have to worry about their footwork. The first match they ever had on the student show was against me and Alex Reynolds. I am proud of those two so much, that they came so far. When I was at NYWC, I looked out for them as much as humanly possible because I cared about them both. I know Randy's transitioning to a music career. I hope he does phenomenal in that. Brandon's been doing more singles stuff outside of NYWC, and I hope he goes as far as wrestling can take him. He's doing great things at Beyond Wrestling. I know Evolve just put out a poll, would you like to see him on upcoming shows? I certainly voted for yes, and I hope everyone else does also.
Well, there you go. Heavy praise for Milk Chocolate from Kip Stevens.
Yes, but they're still losers.
Well, you mentioned you mentioned Beyond Wrestling, and I just noticed the name when I noticed the name when I was looking over some stuff. Sami Callihan.
Okay, Sami Callihan is somebody who I've never wrestled, and he's somebody else who, like, because of my, like, shyness, I don't really have a big conversation with, never had a big conversation with him. But I have a ton of respect for him. Definitely an intense wrestler. Has a unique look. I admire the fact, like, he had a great article on ESPN about his decision leaving WWE, and the stuff that he's doing now in the Indies, like, he's really doing a great job getting a lot of people opportunities, getting people noticed who might not have otherwise been noticed. He's doing great stuff in Lucha Underground. Really, again, I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with him. I would love to get on his radar and, have him give me some pointers to help me get to another level. Nothing but respect for Sami Callihan.
Wow, back to back. Heavy praise for Milk Chocolate and Sami Callihan.
I'm kind of a positive person, so.
Well, my next question would have been with Sami Callihan is that recently he took the book in CZW as DJ tries to focus on more of, I guess, the business side of things, and I'm assuming growing CZW. Would you be able to answer if you are surprised that Sami was able to get the book in a known company like that?
Again, that's a tough question because I'm not in that locker room. And I don't know much quote unquote dirt, if it is, you want to call it dirt. But again, like, Sami was a great, he has a great legacy at CZW. And obviously DJ trusts him and trusts his ideas and trusts his instincts. And again, I for both parties, I hope it works out. I hope that Sami feels fulfilled with booking responsibilities, and I hope that through his ideas, he's able to help DJ grow the company. I hope it works out great for both of those guys. And again, if it works out and they want to use Kip Stevens, that's a win for me. So.
Yeah. Of course it's a win, and that's actually what I was getting at. With the fact that Sami really hasn't booked on a major scale before, and I feel like CZW is one of the more major independent wrestling companies. So I was just, I was a little surprised that DJ would trust an unproven person. You know what I mean?
That's true, but again, we're not in those, at least, you and I are not in those locker rooms, and you don't know, like, Sami could have been helping out ideas with DJ earlier. Sami could have been helping out people along the way with things. Obviously, DJ knows Sami enough where he, like I said, he trusts him and believes in him. And that's, like, the most important thing a wrestler can have, is somebody believing in you. It's very great, it's very empowering, and like I said, I really hope it works great for both of them.
Oh yeah, I agree, because the only way we can get to a golden age in the business is for decisions like that to work out well for the company.
Yeah, certainly.
The other name that popped into my head when I looked at Beyond Wrestling was Jimmy Jacobs.
Okay. He's somebody who, again, like Sami Callihan, I've just, introduced myself, said hi, hi and bye, things like that. Again, he is somebody who gets a lot of praise, and deservedly so. I remember watching him in Ring of Honor as a fan, and he was somebody who reinvented himself a lot, was extremely creative, just with the Ballad of Lacey, that song, and everybody holding up their cell phones for him. That was awesome. Then he did the Age of the Fall stuff, which was really dark and intense. Another thing that, in WWE, he gets credit for being Jericho's writer and helping out Jericho, and that was certainly a great span of his career with the list of Jericho and the scarf and stuff like that. From everything I've seen, it seems like he's excited for this next phase of his life. And again, as an indie wrestler, I hope I get the opportunity to wrestle him or be around him more. And again, if he sees something in me that he can bring to that next level, I'd be welcome to it. He's definitely a resource. He was before he got to WWE, and now it's certainly there as well. So I hope that a lot of companies get the advantage to get the opportunity to take advantage of his knowledge.
I couldn't agree more, and I think Jimmy proved himself working with WWE.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Now, do you think that? Well, it's more of, are you the type of wrestler to, like, do you believe that the people leaving WWE, like the Austin Aries and the Jimmy Jacobs, Jack Swagger, etc., that they do more harm to the indies because they take a spot? Or do you think that they are good for the indies because it gets more eyes on the indies because of their previous exposure with WWE?
Oh, I certainly feel it's a good thing. Again, not only is it more eyes, but if Jack Swagger is wrestling Austin Aries on an indie show, alright, so if that just builds the house, that's fine. But if Jack Swagger's wrestling a student or somebody who's trying to break out, it can only help that person, get better. And that's certainly an opportunity that any wrestler on the indie should relish. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, if we're bringing in Jack Swagger or Austin Aries to get more eyes on everybody here, then it can only be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I know you've probably done this before because you mentioned before about being a part of a training session. But if you were told by the head trainer to stand in the ring and address the people, the trainees, what's one bit of advice you'd give to them?
Wow, that's a really great question. If they're brand spanking new, I always say, just, the more you can just I hate to say keep your mouth shut and ears and eyes open, but it really is so important when you first get there. Just go in there with a blank slate and just be humble, be respectful, listen, and things like that, and it'll help you out more in the long run. But the most important thing is have fun. Wrestling for some people goes in the blink of an eye. Other people, they get to last a long time. And again, there's always going to be setbacks and, hardships and things you have to overcome. And it can get frustrating. And I've seen people really become, I hate to say the word bitter, but I've seen people really start to hate wrestling when they used to love it so much. I always wanted to make sure you have fun. And you can look back and smile at everything you did and be really proud of what you accomplished. So, just work hard but have fun.
And stay away from Virgil.
Virgil's definitely a character.
Yeah. The last question I wanted to ask was, since I do have knowledge of your gimmick, do you think that being an indie wrestler, having a gimmick is better because it makes you stick out? Or do you think that the age of gimmicks in wrestling has come and gone?
So that's a question I ask myself a lot. Because with this gimmick, I feel at times a promoter won't take a chance on me. They'll be like, oh, he's a garbage bag wrestler, doesn't even have boots, But then there's other promoters that are like, you know what, this is different. Let me bring it in and give it a try. And one thing that was a compliment to me, I'm going to put myself over a little bit. One thing that was a compliment to me was you'll see a show with a lot of people. They'll wear their trunks, they'll have their matches. But you stand out. You're the one that comes out and is totally different from everybody else. Even if they're like, all the matches are good, but I really remember that nerd. That's something that helps me out a lot. One opportunity I had through Creative Pro was we had a seminar with Arn Anderson. And I pretty much asked him the same question you asked me. And he said, I just want to say, he said, I don't want to cut you off, but if the way you wrestle just now in front of me, he's like, if a promotion doesn't want to have you, that's on them and they're foolish, because you were awesome. You were great today. And he goes, and I mean that anywhere. So that was like probably the greatest compliment I ever got in wrestling, and it's something that I always hold true to. If a promotion doesn't want me, I don't say, oh, screw them, but it's more like, okay, I understand. But then I'll just prove my value and worth somewhere else. And I'll work hard enough so eventually I could change that other promotion's mind. So as far as does it hurt me at times, I'm sure it does. But is that going to deter me and make me feel like less of a wrestler? No, it's not. It's just going to make me work harder to try and prove them, that I belong.
No. I agree. I think gimmicks are beneficial, but they have to be the right gimmick, and that more so I agree with the idea that independent wrestlers seem to just try and recreate what they see on Monday nights, thinking that that's the only way to make it.
Mm-hmm. And again, wrestling is a variety show. You can have the Triple H's, the John Cena's, the Randy Ortons, but Santino had a great spot on Raw, and the fans loved him. And that's how I look at myself too. Like, is my character like Triple H? No. Is my character like Kane? No. Like The Undertaker? No. But that doesn't mean I don't belong. It just means that I have my own unique skill set to bring. And that's what I try and do at every single show I'm on, every single match I have. Make myself stand out in the way that Kip Stevens stands out, which will be totally different from the way Sami Callihan steps out, and different from the way Triple H stands out, etc.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. But, now the floor is yours. Before I get to the second part of this question, I just wanted to say, if there's any promoter or wrestler you wanted to give a shout out to that you haven't given a shout out to already, the floor is yours. And, let's get to that first. Any wrestler or promoter, company, rather, that you wanted to give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
Alright, certainly. Well, I'll definitely plug my next show, which is going to be that Wrestle Pro show on November 18th. It is called Silver. It'll be for the Silver Championship that will be debuting that night. I'm going to be in a Survivor Series style match. The winners of that match move on to an over-the-top Battle Royal, and the winner of that Battle Royal will be the first ever Wrestle Pro Silver Champion. So hopefully that opportunity comes my way. Another company that I wrestle for is Blitzkrieg Pro. I'm going to make sure I get that next date together. Shows you how prepared I am. Let me just see. I know that in December is when Blitzkrieg Pro will be wrestling again. And they are fun. They're based in Connecticut. They always have big names. Definitely check them out. Another great thing I want to mention is Creative Pro. That is my home school. And on Thursday, December 21st, Creative Pro is going to do a free show, an open house. Basically, you can come to our training center in Hicksville, New York. We're going to have 100% a free show. And in attendance will be Pat Buck and Brian Myers, a.k.a. Curt Hawkins. And again, if you're looking to join a wrestling school, I can think of none better, and you can get a discounted enrollment that night. So you get to ask questions and see wrestling for free. Other companies, any company that's ever used me, thank you. Monster Factory, Limitless Wrestling, Beyond Wrestling, Right Coast Pro in Delaware. There's so many to name. I'm sorry, I'm going to forget names. BCW. I'm sorry if I, left out people. I apologize, but again, I always support any wrestling promotions. And any wrestlers I've ever wrestled against, support them as well, because they had to carry me through a match.
Wow, I sense the arrogance.
No. Again, without them helping me out along the way, I'd be nothing.
Yeah. Well, if there's any other upcoming events that you're going to be featured on that you would like to hype up, now is your opportunity to do so.
Well, those are the major ones right now on my horizon. But again, you never know. I could pop up somewhere randomly just by hopping in the car and getting on the show.
Yeah.
But how can we change that? Right, Mike? I mean, we've had a great interview. This has been a lot of fun, but how can we change that? How can we get Kip Stevens on your next show? Well, you can follow me on Twitter at FrancisKip, STVNS. That is also my Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook at FrancisKipStevens. And feel free to contact me on my Facebook, and we can work something out. I will do anything. I can do ring announcing. I will referee. I will wrestle. Whatever you need, I am at your service. I will set up chairs. I will set up the ring.
Wow, a jack of all trades.
You have to be. You have to be in wrestling.
And you segued yourself nicely in that.
Yes. Alright. Anything else, my friend?
Well, with that being said, I want to thank Francis Kip Stevens for joining me on this episode of Express Talk.
Kip Kip Hooray, one tough nerd. Hashtag it.
And also I want to thank all of you for listening, watching, hearing this anyway how you did, and let us know down in the comment section below. I mean, if you have any idea of somebody you wanted to see on Express Talk, I can try and get them on. I doubt that they'll come on. But that's their
loss, because you were certainly wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that, Kip.
Again, thank you for all the fans who were listening and for supporting me. Thank you.
Yep. And with that being said, feedback is always more than welcomed and appreciated. But if you don't want to leave a comment, you can always leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to ding dong that notification bell to always know when a new video comes up right here on Wrestling Express. Until next time.